Hello everyone, welcome to Lukman IAS. Today we are going to have the Hindu analysis of 7th November 2021. Let us see which are the important articles from today's The Hindu newspaper. See, we have segregated them for mains purpose and prelims purpose. First of all, we will take overview of all these articles, then we will discuss them one by one in detail. See, prompt corrective action. So there is changes brought by RBI in prompt corrective action framework. And this article on FAQ page number 11, talks about that changes. Along with that, the purpose of this PCA and what are the different measures taken under this framework. Okay, on what different criteria basis different banks, commercial banks, they are, let's say, given the categories under prompt corrective action. All these things are important from GS 3 paper economy part. Yes, then all about Tigray rebels and crisis in Ethiopia. So last 1 week many times such articles appeared, and that's why we wanted to cover the historical backgrounds and the nature of crisis. Also through maps we have to identify different regions of Ethiopia. Okay, so all things will be covered here today about this Tigray rebels. Then China more active now at Chumbi Valley. In one of the reports submitted to US Congress by its let's say armed forces and intelligence agencies, they have said that China is building more and more infrastructure in Chumba Valley, and that infrastructure, especially road infrastructure, may be used for strategic purposes in near future. Okay, so to some extent it is a threat. We have to identify the location Chumbi Valley, which is nearby that Doklam Plateau. It is a tri-junction between China, then we can say India and Bhutan. Okay, so we'll find out that on map. Then specifically for prelims examination, there is one article on FAQ page which talks about these two important initiatives announced in this COP26 global methane pledge and Glasgow leaders declaration on forest and land use. Also we have to understand that why India refused to sign both of these. Okay, so reasons we should know about that. Fine. Then sunspots and solar flares and solar storms and formation of aurora. Right. So yes, this is important from geography perspective. There is one article on science and technology page number 10, which talks about the formation of aurora recently witnessed during the Diwali time, and there was solar storm, solar flares because of sunspot activity, and this was identified by the researchers or scientists. That's why it was in news. Okay, so we'll try to know about this. This is important for both mains GS1 paper, geography part, as well as prelims paper. Fine. Okay, now look at the first article. How has RBI tweaked prompt corrective action norms for banks? Okay, so this article, initially it talks about first of all context is RBI issued notification on 2nd November revising norms for commercial banks to be placed under RBI's prompt corrective action framework, and these changes will be enacted from 1st January 2022. But the article provides some background, when this PCA was announced for the first time, which are the banks under it at present, along with that the purpose of this PCA. So let us understand that. For the first time this PCA was notified in December 2002, and many banks were brought under this PCA. But for what purpose? Yes, the purpose is to enable supervisory intervention by RBI at appropriate time and require the supervised entity, that is commercial banks, to initiate and implement remedial measures in a timely manner so as to restore its financial health. That means before going into the crisis, the commercial banks will be provided warning. They will be asked to take certain measures, and there will be some restriction in carrying out business by these banks unless and until these measures are undertaken. Okay, so in this manner we should understand, and therefore it intended to act as a tool for effective market discipline. That means there should not be reckless lending by these commercial banks, which may threaten the financial system. Okay, and that's why we should understand in this manner the purpose. And recently in 2021 we can say UCO Bank, IDBI Bank, India Overseas Bank, they exited from the framework on improved performance. So once the performance is improved after taking such measures, these banks will come out of PCA framework and they will continue in general. At present, there is only one bank, that is Central Bank of India, that remains under PCI. Okay. Now, what are the banks measured on? That means the criteria. Which are these criteria? Let us understand them first. Okay. This is very important. There are total 4 criteria. In 2017, there was, let's say, revised PCA framework. After that, now only the amendment is done. According to 2017 framework, the banks were evaluated on 4 criteria. One is capital, second is asset quality, third is profitability, and fourth is leverage. Okay, now let us understand what is the meaning of these 4 criteria. Capital is basically governed through capital adequacy ratio, which governs the capital that the bank ought to hold as percentage of its total assets. Capital adequacy ratio. For example, if the ratio is prescribed as 11.5%, the bank must bring its own capital of 11.5 rupees for every 100 rupees it intend to lend. That capital should be always brought by the bank. This is what capital adequacy ratio is, and it is the measure for measuring the capital. Then asset quality tells us what portion of loans is unlikely to be paid back. Okay, so obviously whenever there is a poor quality of asset, then surely that is unlikely to be paid back. Such loans will be defaulted by these corporates or individuals, and therefore they will be non-performing assets. They will be non-performing assets. तो ऐसे जो non-performing assets होते हैं, they will be reflected in the net non-performing asset ratio. That is the portion of total advances tagged non-performing after provisioning for bad loans. For every bad loan, the bank needs to do some provisioning, otherwise it will go into losses. Okay, so and then the next is return on assets. This measures the profitability. So this is the third one, right? Profitability. So return on assets, this is the criteria used here to measure profitability. This is nothing but derived from net income, that is profit as percentage of total assets. Right, so that is, we can say, return on assets. And fourth one is leverage ratio, which shows how much a lender has stretched itself in borrowing funds to generate income. Because the commercial banks, they also borrow from the market to generate funds or lending purpose. This is manner we should understand. This is leverage ratio. The more the bank stretches, or we can say the more the leverage, the riskier the turf on which the lender stands. This can be asked in prelims also. Okay, so remember these 4 criteria. And now, what curbs banks faces under PCI when it is brought under the PCI framework? So bank in a sequential manner goes through criteria, or we can say group of 1, 2, 3 phases or stages with the stricter, or we can say higher level of restrictions. Banks move from risk thresholds 1 to 3 with increasing restrictions if they are unable to arrest deterioration. Okay, so 1 में जो है थोड़े कम restriction है, 2 में ज़्यादा restriction है, और 3 में सबसे ज़्यादा restriction है. किस तरीके से कौन से restrictions होते हैं, that we will try to know. Like for example, in the first category, banks face curbs on dividend distribution or remittance on profit. For the foreign banks, promoters are supposed to bring more capital in first category. The second category, banks additionally face curbs on the branch expansion. So they will not be allowed to further establish new branches, the expansion of branches. In the final category, more stricter one, bank additionally faces restriction on capital expenditure with some exemptions. Along with these three, the RBI has some kind of discretionary powers. In addition to these, it is also having the discretionary actions across strategy, governance, credit risk, market risk and human resources of these commercial banks. Okay, so in this manner we should understand what kind of restrictions these commercial banks face once they are put under PCA. Now, look at this. What changes this particular recent notification has brought? Two important changes you should remember. The notification has removed return on asset as an indicator to qualify PCA. So out of 4, 1 is removed. Now only 3 are there. That is leverage, capital, and we can say one more, profitability. Okay, profitability is removed. So capital is there. Capital is there, asset quality, So capital is there, asset quality is there, profitability is removed, leverage is there. So 3 will be there now onwards. Okay, now, yes, the other changes made through this notification, what are the other changes? In 2017 notification, this was applied to only scheduled commercial banks and excluded RRBs. Now the present notification goes one step ahead and it excludes small finance banks as well as payment banks. That means small finance banks, payment banks as well as RRBs, all 3 are not, so PCA is not applied to these 3. PCA is only applied to scheduled commercial banks. Okay, so in this manner we should remember. Along with that latest set of rules, the RBI has clearly spelled out that exit from PCA would be based on 4 continuous quarterly results, which one being the audited annual financial statement as per the new framework. Okay, too much technical things, this you can skip this point, but first 2 these changes you should remember. Okay, fine. Now moving on, China more active now at Chumbi Valley. Yes, so this particular development we have come to know from the report to the US Congress on military development involving People's Republic China. The Department of Defense of US, they have given this report, and in that report they have said that China is strengthening its connectivity and increasing its depth into Chumbi Valley, close to India's strategic and vulnerable Siliguri corridor. Now this is to some extent kind of let's say unfavorable developments to India. First of all, look at the location. Chumbi Valley is located at the tri-junction of India. You can see here the Sikkim is there on this side, then on this side Bhutan is there, and on this side China is there. So when we zoom in this particular location, you can see here this is Chumbi Valley overall protruded version, let's say region into India. In this part, on this side there is Bhutan, on this side Sikkim is there. You can see the location of Doklam Plateau. This is Doklam Plateau. This is Dokala Pass. This is Nathula Pass on this side from Sikkim. Okay, so Doklam crisis, if you remember 2017 there was standoff between India and China. 2017 Doklam and this Chumbi Valley. So the recent report says that in this region the road construction activities is more by China, and in future that may be used for movement of its armed forces. Okay, now it is strategic location for India. Why Chumbi Valley is key? Chinese activity in Chumbi Valley is concerned to India because the dagger shaped area is just above India's Chicken Neck, the strip of land that connects India's northeast to the rest of the country. Now what is the area Chicken Neck? This is the area, no? Now this Chicken Necks, at its narrowest point, it is around 15 to 20 kilometer wide, and all connectivity is from this narrow part to the northeast. Okay, that's why it is very strategically important for India and for its connectivity to the northeast. Any kind of developments to this region are threatening our security to this region will affect our northeastern part, connectivity from mainland to northeastern part. Okay, so GS2 paper IR section India China is there, along with that GS3 part security is also there. Need to remember the location for geography part, that is also important for prelims examination. Now moving on, yes, there is one article on page number 12 which talks about this Tigray rebels and the crisis that is going on in Ethiopia, right? So this crisis we need to understand, though you will say that it is not relevant directly to the examination. Yes, in GS2 paper the syllabus point clearly mentions that those developments which are having impact on interest of India. So it is not directly having interest on India, but the significant developments you should be just aware about them. Also it can be asked in prelims examination, because in prelims they have asked questions like the disturbed regions or those having civil war, they have asked match the following type of questions. So that's why it is important. In this part, first of all, I will show that map to you about this Ethiopia and Tigray region. Then I will explain the historical background. So this is the map of Ethiopia. You can see the capital Addis Ababa located nearly at the center. And this Tigray region is the northern part, this part. And the capital of Tigray region is Mekele, or the main city is Mekele here. Now in this region you can see the greener part is the Tigray region, or the dominance of this Tigray People's Liberation Front at present, and the rebellion grouping or front is, its influence is increasing day by day and they are moving towards south now. This is the situation. Now we'll try to know the background here. What happened in Ethiopia? Very important if you want to understand what is happening there. Yes, so Ethiopia's Nobel Prize winning Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, so in 2019 Nobel Peace Prize was given. Okay, he started military operations in the rebellious Tigray region in November 2020 last year, and now almost 1 year is completed. Still the Tigray People's Liberation Front has not only recaptured Tigray but also moved south towards Addis Ababa, that is Ethiopia's capital as well as that host headquarter of African Union, Addis Ababa. Now let us understand what is this particular front. Okay, so Tigray People's Liberation Front, it was founded in 1975 as a resistance army of Tigrayan people against military dictatorship. The name of the military dictatorship at that time was called DERT. Okay, so now this front played a crucial role in ousting this junta, and they were welcomed as national heroes in 1991. Okay, so they fought with this dictatorship and they achieved some kind of freedom, and later on they became the part of government. Okay, from 1991 to 2018 they were actually part of government. They formed this party and they were part of government. Let us understand that part now. Okay, so yes, so this front leader Meles Zenawi took over as the interim president in 1991, became first elected prime minister in 1995, remained in power till 2012. But slowly resentment started against the prime minister. Over the years, the government led by Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, remember the name Ethiopian People's Revolutionary Democratic Front, a coalition put together by Mr. Zenawi, was accused of being increasingly authoritarian, and there were frequent mass protests in the regions. Now, in 2018, this coalition chose Mr. Abe, the former military intelligence officer, to lead the government amid growing protest and political deadlock. Now, Mr. Abe became the Prime Minister. What happens? Let us see after that. He takes many such radical measures. The Tigray people make up roughly 6% of the population, while Oromos have 34% of the share and Amharas have 27%. While this Tigray People's Liberation Front control the levers of power through this coalition. This was the major, you can see the reasons for resentment. Tigray people only 6% of total population, but they had the power. Okay, and that's why the resentment among the common people and protests were going on.
Nothing but Afghanistan Taliban.
Yes.
Same pattern.
Yes, but yes, basically it was not reflecting the majority, no. The government, the power, the executive, it should reflect the majority. So otherwise there will be protest. Okay, so yes, Prime Minister Mr. Abe took host of steps to cut the outsized influence of this front in the government. He purged this fund functionaries from key government posts, released political prisoners jailed by this front, and promised free media. Along with that, he reached out to Eritrea. Eritrea is northern border country of Ethiopia and sworn enemy of this Tigray People's Liberation Front. Okay, and which shares the long border with the Tigray region. Though this to some extent antagonize Tigray people, है ना? आप एनिमी के साथ कैसे हाथ मिला लिया आपने, ऐसा हो जाता है ना. Fine. So now Mr. Abe, the country's first Oromo leader. See here, Oromos majority population, and he is the first such Oromo leader representing Oromos.
Two types of clans, na sir, that one.
The Oromos, Tigrays are minorities.
Tigray, sir.
Rather, the majorities, two Oromos and Amharas are there. So, majority Oromos, and he is representative of that clan. Okay, so that's why he has some kind of support of people electorally. Obviously, when there will be elections, the majority will win, no? So now, let us understand further. Now, after the good relations with Eritrea, basically he received this Nobel Peace Prize. Okay, Mr. Abe, country's first Oromo leader, claimed that his actions are not driven by ethnic calculations but rather aimed at addressing historic power imbalance in the country and making peace with the neighbors. But this front saw the moves as hostile, and after that it removed itself from that coalition government and we can say retreated back to Tigray region. वो जो political party उनकी है, they started retreating from the Addis Ababa and they went to Mekelle. ठीक है, और वहाँ पे उनका dominance जो है उन्होंने बढ़ाया. When Mr. Abe formed the new political coalition, Prosperity Party, all constituents of the earlier coalition except this Tigray front joined the new platform. Okay.
They are the powerful except that person, so they are remaining all are combined.
Yes. So all are actually supporting Mr. Abe except this front. Okay. Now this front saw the formation of new party as an attempt by Mr. Abe to consolidate more power in the hands of party leadership, shifted from Addis Ababa to Mekelle, Tigray regional capital. So this Tigray People's Liberation Front, they started retreating to Mekelle, their own region. In August 2020, actually this should be 2020, when Mr. Abe's government decided to postpone parliamentary elections, citing COVID-19 TPLF openly challenged the decision, and they themselves conducted the elections, local elections or regional elections in Tigray region by themselves. So this was against the government, right? So they accused Prime Minister of power grab and went ahead holding elections in the region in defiance of federal government. Okay, now finally we should understand that the present situation, what happened is, on November 3, 2020, these militants attacked the federal military command in Tigray region and captured military hardware and equipment, prompting Mr. Abe to declare the military operation last November. Okay, but at present what is happening is the Tigray People's Liberation Front, they have some kind of inbuilt protection by the mountainous region of Tigray. Okay, and now also these rebels are successfully fighting with the government forces, or they have been successful to eliminate the government forces from these territories, and they are extending their dominance in that region. Okay, so this is the situation at present. So once again they regrouped in the mountainous and struck back. By June 2021, the rebels inflicted humiliating defeat on the government troops, who had to withdraw from the Tigray, and then this front moved further south, seizing more territories in the neighborhood regions. ठीक है, तो इस तरीके से आपको पता होना चाहिए. You can see, understanding these events we have mentioned, 2020 attack, then Abe announces military operation called are completed but fighting continues. Okay, then in February 2021, Amnesty International says Eritrean soldiers killed hundreds of civilians in November in the holy city of Axum. In June, Ethiopian officials flee Mekelle in the face of rebel advance. They take the Tigray capital and push south. Now on 4th October, Abiy is sworn in for new 5-year term in office. अगले 5 साल के लिए फिर से elect हो जाते हैं. And now again there will be continuous fighting going on. Okay, so we know about Saturday we talked about Lake Tana. Very important because it is source of Blue Nile River. And on this Blue Nile River, when it is flowing like this, it enters into Sudan. Before entering into Sudan, there is Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, GERD. This was in news last year. And then in Sudan, it meets with White Nile River, and then it will be called as Nile River. Okay, this much discussion is sufficient, I guess. Where does India stand on methane emissions? This is important for prelims examination. First of all, you should remember 2 important initiatives from this year's COP26, Global Methane Pledge, Glasgow Leaders Declaration on Forest and Land Use. These 2 important initiatives. Okay, so article explains these 2, and along with that why India did not join them. Okay, the reasons you should be aware. What are the sources of methane gas? Both man-made as well as natural sources are there. Just first we'll try to know about them, like landfills, paddy farms, agriculture, livestock, cattle, then oil and natural gas systems, then coal mines, in general combustion also marshy lands, then okay, combustion, marshy lands, then also you can write some of the industrial processes, you can say they release methane gas. Also you write waste water treatment plant. They also release Methane.
Recirculated water.
Yes. Grey water treatment plants are there, no? Sewage water treatment plants and all these things. Remember them. Prelims, surely they can ask question. It is in news. Now, why is methane potent as greenhouse gas? Some facts are mentioned. 1/5 of total greenhouse gas emissions is by methane or from methane. Also, methane is 25 times more potent than CO2. These facts you should remember. But the only silver line here is methane remains for less amount of time in atmosphere. And that's why this global methane pledge to take out that amount of methane easily and reduce global warming. That's why it is significant. Okay. Now, why hasn't India signed the pledge? Two important reasons. Agriculture, very important part, rice, paddy system, and livestock, cattle, largest population of cattle in India. Along with that,
Large milk production is there.
yes, so that's why cattle is very important for us. Along with that, we should understand the government committed that we will not give participate in the pledge. Rather, we are taking efforts on our own. So, Ministry of New and Renewable Energy, it is investing so many things in terms of capturing methane and biogas energy production that will reduce methane into the atmosphere. Okay, this is very important. Landfills, so basically from landfills the biogas can be generated in rural areas. Okay, or simply from the cattle dung and all these things, generally when it is lying in the as it is, then it releases methane. So that can be used for biogas production, no? So in this manner we have to understand, already we are making efforts. We do not want to commit here because any kind of restriction on this will affect our agriculture sector. And we know that rural India, largely the population is dependent on agriculture and livestock. So that's why. Second aspect, Glasgow Declaration on Forest and Land Use. This particular declaration, this is very important. Around 133 countries. In this pledge, around 90 countries, right? And 133 countries, they participated, making around 90% of the forest cover of the world. Facts are important, right? We have to remember these facts. Now, about this declaration by the end of this decade, we have to stop deforestation, or let's say using forest land for the commercial plantation. It has important initiatives under it. So it wants to avoid any kind of use of forest land for the commercial plantations. Second, logging activities, they have to be eliminated completely. Along with that, third is recognition of rights of the local indigenous people and forest dwellers over the forest produce. They are being recognized. Now this particular declaration also talks about the finance mobilization of $19 billion. $19 billion. Okay, so this much let's say information is sufficient. Now this is the successor agreement to this New York Declaration. This year question was asked, New York Declaration 2014 on forest. So under this declaration we wanted to reduce the CO2 or simply the greenhouse gas emissions because of deforestation. However, it was not successful. Now through this we want to further act on that. Okay, we should understand that deforestation contributes to around 20% of greenhouse gas contribution. Deforestation. How deforestation contributes? Basically, forests are carbon sinks.
Carbon sinks. If
So-
we are terminating of that green fields, it may add to some more content
Yes.
of atmosphere.
Basically, we are actually reducing the capacity of these natural carbon sinks to absorb CO2 from the atmosphere. So ultimately we are adding, no, जो naturally कम हो रहा था तो वो रह रहा है, मतलब क्या है, वो ऐड हो रहा है. समझ में आ रहा है? Yes, yes, yes. Fine. Now, why hasn't India signed up this one also? There is one specific provision that those who are signing this pledge or this particular declaration, it also adds up to the trade of forest resources. Okay, so there will be some restriction on trade, but India does not accept that because trade is a very different matter that should be dealt under WTO. यहाँ पे क्यों ला रहे हैं उसको, ऐसा उनका बोलना है, इंडिया का.
We are going to be exporting some timber.
Yes, we are exporting many such forest produce.
If we sign on that one, we are unable to export of that products.
Yes, so there will be restrictions, but India considered that as being member of WTO, the decision should be taken by under WTO, not this convention. At the same time, we are going to tweak with our Forest Conservation Act also and forest policy also. We want to make such measures wherein the forest land can be used for the commercial plantations. There will be some tweaking. Okay, and this is actually negative measure. It should not happen. Already our national forest policy talks about having the 33% of the land covered with the forest, or forest cover of 33%, 1/3 geographical land. At present we are having 23 to 24. 24 latest state of forest report says 24% forest cover, and we want to increase to 33%, and deforestation is going on continuously, right? So how we are going to achieve that remains to be seen. Also we have committed through this forest, we are going to create more carbon sink. हमने commit किया था UNFCCC में Paris Agreement को. So that's why obviously that remains the concern. So simply remember that India did not join both of the initiatives. India has its own initiatives at national level. Fine? Okay. Now, the sun lights up aurora in high latitude countries. See, before understanding this, simply first understand these concepts of geography, and then we can understand formation of aurora. Okay, yes, so solar magnetic cycle that works in deep interior of the sun creates regions which comes to the surface and appear like dark spots. They are called as sunspot, right? There is a unique sunspot cycle of sun. It is 11-year sunspot cycle. After every 11 year, there will be increased or decreased activities of sunspots. Okay, so in this manner we should understand this. This is happening because of magnetic cycle of sun. Now, solar flares are highly energetic phenomenon that happens inside the sunspot. Basically, these solar flares ejects now the highly, let's say, high radiations and some charged particles also. Okay, so in a solar flare, the energy stored in sun's magnetic structures is converted into light and heat energy. This causes emissions of high energy X-ray radiation and highly accelerated charged particles to leave from the surface. Sometimes the solar flares also cause hot plasma to be ejected from the sun. Now this concept is called as solar storm. Okay, hot plasma. It is different from X-ray radiation.
It will come as some quantity of amount.
Huge amount,
Hugely
like packet. है ना. So it is called a solar storm and it is rare activity. Solar flare is common, solar storm is rare, and this was recently seen. Okay, yes, and this is also called technically coronal mass ejection. Coronal mass ejection. Last year in our GS test series we asked this question in geography part, and it can be asked in UPC GS1 mains examination also, this concept, because Earth's magnetic field, how Earth's magnetic field protects from solar flares, solar storm, geomagnetism concept, that is very important. Right. Now these coronal mass ejections can harbor energies exceeding that of billions of atomic bombs. So huge energy in the form of radiations, harmful radiations. Okay, now the energy, the radiation and high energy particles emitted by flares can affect earthbound objects. How it affects? First, it affects electronics with satellites and affect astronauts in the space. Second, it may cause failure of power grids and affect pipelines, deep sea cables. Such kind of thing last time happened in 1989, the blackout in North America, in Canada, power failure. Okay, and then it also caused spectacular aurora in the high latitude and polar country. Now what is this phenomenon of aurora? You can see here, many of students may have seen this photo. Aurora formation, this happens in the polar region, like Canada is there, or Nordic countries, Russia, North Pole or South Pole also. What is this phenomenon? Let us understand. Aurora is name given to luminous glow in the upper atmosphere of the earth, which is produced by charged particles. These charged particles कहाँ से आए ये? Solar storms, solar wind या flares जिसको हम बोलते हैं. So these charged particles, because of Earth's magnetic field, they are not able to enter at the equator or lower latitudes. Rather, they all descend near poles like this. So suppose simply I will draw here like this. It is Earth, and there will be Earth's magnetic field like this, right? And when these solar flares are coming in this manner, the Earth's magnetic field protects us, and some of these charged particles enters here like this in the polar region. Okay, as these are we can say magnetic field lines, these charged particles move along the magnetic field lines and they reach near polar region. And basically these are charged particles descending from the planet's magnetosphere, the Earth's magnetosphere, and they now form the luminance kind of thing. The positive ions slowly drift westward and negative ions drift eastward, giving rise to a ring current. This current reduces the magnetic field at Earth's surface. The charged particles follow magnetic field lines which are oriented in and out of our planet and in atmosphere near the magnetic poles, and therefore the aurora mostly is seen in the higher latitudes near the magnetic poles. Generally now at present they are located near the geographic poles, magnetic poles, but in past they have wandered. Okay. Yes, this is important phenomenon. Now we have understood this. Fine. Okay, so these are the important articles from Sunday's newspaper. Fine. Any doubt? Okay. Yes, let us stop. Thank you.